Hello and welcome back to another VMK in the Caligari series. In this video I'll show you how to do some modeling in TrueSpace. I'm only going to be showing you modeling using polygons because GameSpace only supports polygon modeling. TrueSpace supports NURBS modeling as well as Metapol modeling, but I'm not going to be going over this kind of modeling. By the end of this video, you should have a feeling for how some of the modeling tools work. However, you will not be a professional modeler. To become a professional modeler, you need many months of experience using the tool. What I'm trying to show you in this video is basically where the tools are located so that you can go in and experiment at your own. By playing around with TrueSpace and trying different things, you'll gain more experience and you'll become faster, better, and quicker at creating 3D models. So let's get started in TrueSpace. I showed you how to set up your default 4-point view in the last video, so you should have the following on your screen. To create 3D objects in TrueSpace, all you need to do is select a primitive object and click on its button. You notice that each of these buttons have a small triangle in the top left-hand corner as well as a small triangle in the top right-hand corner. This means that you can right-click on these to bring up an extra window which will allow you to customize how you're going to create the specific object. You can also click and drag some of these to have other kinds of primitives to be created. However, these are only supported in TrueSpace. If you're using GameSpace, you won't have these other options. Alright, let's begin with a cube. If you click on the cube icon, you select it so that you can then go and create a cube in your scene. In the status bar, it says left click to define primitive position, right click to leave the tool. There's a couple ways to create a cube on the screen. You can either click and drag while holding the left mouse button, or you can just simply click and let go and a cube will be created. Let's do that case first. I'm just going to click and let go and automatically a 2x2 cube is created on the screen. You'll notice there's also a red ring with a green edge located right here on the side. I'm going to press the F key, which focuses on that cube, and then using my mouse wheel I can zoom in on that cube so you can see it a little bit better. This ring here is called the magic ring. Within TrueSpace you can use this ring to define specifically how this cube will look. Using the mouse you can highlight this ring and make different kinds of changes. For instance, if you click with your left mouse button, hold and drag, you'll notice that I'm sizing the cube if I click on the top portion of this red ring. If I click and hold on this vertical portion, I'm actually increasing or decreasing the top faces here. If I use my right mouse button, I can increase the number of divisions. By right-clicking on the green section, you can increase the number of divisions vertically, like so. By left-clicking on the green section, you can change the slope of the green section. And then by clicking on the blue diamond here, you can rotate the object, or you can also right-click on it to change the number of divisions this way. So you can see this magic ring has a lot of different controls all built into it. Play around with the magic ring for all different kinds of primitives to see how you can use it to create different kinds of shapes. Once you've decided what your object's going to look like, press the space bar, and that now saves the object so that this is the one you're going to be working with. Our cube no longer looks like a cube, so I'm going to hit the delete key just to delete it off the screen. I'm going to reset the view by clicking on the tilde button on the keyboard, and then I'm going to go and create another cube. This time, instead of just clicking on the screen, I'm going to click and drag. By doing this, you begin to draw out your shape, like so. While holding the left mouse button, click and hold the right mouse button. So now you should be holding both mouse buttons down at the same time. Now if you move the cursor upward, you'll notice you start extending the cube upward. This is another way to give shape to your original cube. Once you let go of the mouse buttons, you get your magic ring again. And once again, you can use the magic ring to further shape, scale your cube to whatever you want it to look like. Once you've defined how you want it to look, press the spacebar and you've saved the new primitive object to your scene. I'm going to hit delete one more time and just create a very simple cube that we can work with. I'm going to hit the spacebar so we actually do have a cube on the screen. Now, what can we do with this cube? Using the navigation hotkeys, A, S, and D, you can notice here I'm changing which current selection I have enabled. We'll start with the move. By clicking the A key, I've selected to move my camera. Now, when I click and hold the left mouse button inside any of these views, I'm actually moving the camera. If I click and hold in this view, I'm moving the camera. If I click and hold this view, I'm moving the camera. Anytime I select one of these views, a blue border surrounds it to let you know that this is the currently selected view. You can only move the currently selected view. If I click over here, the currently selected view changes to the side view, and then this is the one that I'm moving. Alright, let's go back to the perspective view, and this time press the S hotkey. This will turn on your eye rotation. Now when you use the left mouse button, you're actually rotating about your cube. You cannot use the rotation in orthogonal views. You'll notice as soon as I select the top view and I click and drag, nothing happens. Same thing with the front view or the side view. You can only rotate in the perspective view, which is located up here. Lastly, if you press the D key, you can now zoom. By moving in and out with the mouse and holding the left mouse button, you're zooming in and out of the view. This also works in the orthogonal views, so just click and hold the button and you'll zoom in and out. Now for the object manipulation tools. Using the Q key, you select Object Move Tool. This time when you click and hold inside any of these views, you're actually moving the object, not the camera. The motion of the object is always with respect to the current view you have selected. So if I've selected the perspective view like I have in this one here, if I move left and right, I'm actually moving in the XY plane. The x-axis is represented by this green line here. The y-axis is represented by the blue line here. The z-axis is up and down. So when I'm moving horizontally my mouse, I'm actually moving in the XY plane. In the top view, you can see the box actually is moving diagonally as I'm moving this box side to side in the perspective view. If I click in the top view and I move side to side, you notice it does move side to side. However, now in the perspective view, it's sort of following along that green axis, which is the x-axis. And you can be sure that this is the x-axis because in the object info bar, you'll notice that as you're moving left and right, the x value is changing here. If I'm moving it up and down, then the y value is changing in the object info bar. So always keep an eye here on the object info as you're manipulating your objects so that you can get an understanding of which axis you're manipulating. Alright, let's move on to the rotation. You click on the W and now click and drag. You'll notice that you're able to rotate in 3D the object. This isn't very helpful when you're rotating in perspective because it's very difficult to control the rotation. To reset any of the values that you've chosen, you can go into the object info under rotation and just reset these to 0. Type in 0 and press enter. Do this for all 3 values and you'll reset the cube back to its original orientation. The last tool is scaling. If you press the E key, you enable the scaling mode, and as you click and drag, you're now scaling the object. Again, this scaling is with respect to the current view. So if I go into the top view and I click to the left, I'm scaling in the x-axis. If I click up and down, I'm scaling in the y-axis. Alright, now that we've deformed our cube, it no longer looks like a cube, so I'm just going to delete it one more time, create a new one, press spacebar. There is another way to manipulate the object, and that's by using this little manipulator located down here. This manipulator looks similar to our manipulator which is located here, but this manipulator is only used to change the current view of the camera. So if we use this manipulator, you notice that the cube stays in its position, but the camera is moving because we can see that the world is moving with the object. By using this tool down here, we can rotate the object about a specific axis. So for instance, if we wanted to rotate about this axis, we just click and hold the little red section, and you notice we get a nice spin. If we use the blue section, we get a spin this way, and the green one, we get a roll this way. Again, we can reset everything just by typing in zeros. There's one other way you can manipulate your object on the screen, and you'll see that there's a little ball located right below the currently selected object. If you click on this ball, you'll notice diamonds appear along the edges of the selection border. You can select and rotate your objects. Again, these rotations are about the specific axes that these balls are sitting on. So if I click and hold this one, I'm sort of rolling it about a vertical axis. If I click and select this one, I'm sort of rolling about a x-axis here. And this one would be rolling about the y-axis. Okay? So that's where you'd find all the manipulation tools. There are some extra tools located along the edges here which you can use to move and scale. If you click and hold along the middle section, located on both sides of where the ball is, there's a yellow highlighted section. Clicking and holding the left mouse button, you can use this to move your object. Yellow highlighted sections along the corners are used to scale your object. Uniformly scaling, you can do that by clicking and holding on one of the corners. You'll notice that the whole object is scaled uniformly. So again, there's multiple ways of manipulating your object's shape as well as orientation by using the built-in tools within TrueSpace. One other thing I wanted to show you in this video is how to make selections for multiple objects. I'm going to delete that cube and create a few cubes on the screen. So I'm going to select the cube tool and just click a couple times to place 5 cubes on the screen. Once you finish placing your last one, press the space bar to bring up the selection tool here. By clicking on the arrow button, you use this tool to make selections. Clicking on an object selects it. Clicking on another object unselects the first one and selects the second one. I'm going to click on this ball to get rid of some of those extra diamonds located around the selection boundary. To select multiple objects, you need to hold the Control key and then select on your second object. You notice now that I have 2 objects selected because the bounding box is surrounding both objects. Located here, it's a little bit easier to see. Now when we use our manipulation tool, we're actually manipulating around both objects, like so. If I wanted to add a third object to this, just hold the Control key again and select your third object. Now you see we have these 3 boxes selected. Using these controls one more time, I can go and manipulate these 3 objects all together. If I wanted to remove an object from a selection, hold down Control and select object that is already selected. It now becomes unselected, leaving just these 2 objects selected. You can see now I'm only manipulating these 2 objects. This third one, which I just removed, is no longer being manipulated. Once you're done with a specific object or you don't like it, you can just hit the delete key and you can delete it off your screen. Alright, we've only worked with cubes. There are a few other primitives you can work with. There's a plane, which is just a flat square. There's a cylinder. There's also a cone, a sphere, a rounded cylinder, which is basically a cylinder with a ball section located to the top and bottom half, a torus, and a rounded cube as well. This last object here is a metal muscle, which is not available within GameSpace Lite, so I'm not going to talk about it in any detail. As with all other primitives, as soon as you bring in a new object, you get a ring around it. Using that ring, you can quickly manipulate how this object looks before you decide to start modeling with it. After you've decided how it looks, you can just hit the space bar, and then that's the current object you'll be working with. Alright, so play around with the primitive creation tools, put some objects in the screen, manipulate them around, get familiar with how the scaling, rotating, and movements work, as well as for the camera, so that you can become familiar with how to move around objects, how to select, how to deselect. After you're comfortable with that, come back for the next VMK, where I actually show you how to start manipulating these objects so that you can change their shapes drastically and start creating 3D objects.